Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're talking about the one and only ICP. And listen, ladies and gentlemen, things are looking really, really good with ICP. I mean, really, really good. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we have been making progress, continuously going up higher and higher. We can see when we look over the last few days, let's just say over the last 2 weeks, we can see that we have been just staircasing upwards, right? We've been very, very fundamental. We have a low here at 494. We have a nice high at around 530, and then we have a higher low around 506, and then we just continue to kind of staircase upwards. We can see that even when we did pull back, all we did was simply retest off of this high over here. And you could debate, well, if you pull this out, there's a little bit more support and resistance, which I'd actually say, yeah, you are correct, which is why, we pulled back here and it didn't go lower. You can see once we retested, we closed fairly good around 535. The next 2 days have been bullish. Now, this is going to be the ultimate test over the next few days. I believe this candle is going to close very, very well, probably around 596, even upwards of $6. It just depends when this video comes out, but there's still some time for this daily close. But ladies and gentlemen, the key important thing that I really, really want to be looking at is where are we going to close over the next few days, right? We can see that the last recent close we have in terms of highs is at 614. And then we had a slightly higher one over here at roughly 618. But here's the deal, people, when we actually look at the weekly, right? This weekly candle that had the close at 614 is much better, right? It is much better. So that is why daily sometimes is good to look at, but the weekly is really, really important. Since we are talking about the weekly, the weekly has been looking phenomenal, right? It has. The last few weeks have been looking great. We know that there's practically a triple bottom over here, and we know we are consistently climbing up higher and higher, creating higher and higher weekly lows, which is what we love to see. When we create higher weekly lows, that pretty much means there's too much demand and price is not going back to the previous lows, creating the higher lows. Okay. And we can see, ladies and gentlemen, right? We are just slowly making our way up and things are looking fantastic. Over the next few days, or even whether it doesn't technically have to happen this week, but over the next few days, I'm looking to see daily candle closes above 614 and also above 617. That would be very, very ideal, especially if the weekly candle can close there as well, because the highest weekly candle close, ladies and gentlemen, we have is at 598. And you can actually see we're literally, as of right now, just 1 cent away from contesting these last relevant weekly highs. Okay, because this is the highest weekly high we've had pretty much since March, mid March. So it's been many, many months. So this week is absolutely going to be crucial. If we do not burst out this week or next week, this is how some things can play out, right? We close well this week. Let's say we close higher. We have one more pullback week, potentially back down to 565. And then that's when we really start going and attacking the third week. Okay, so it's either going to play out like this, or if we remove this, is we're going to close very, very nice, right? We're going to close very, very nice. And instead of the whole week being a pullback, we may have a day or two of a pullback. And then the rest of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, will be pushing price all the way up. The thing is, ladies and gentlemen, right? Something I actually haven't really talked about is that there's a lot of imbalance. Pretty much, we could say safely from 585 all the way to practically $7. So the thing is, once we do start bursting up, there's a high chance that we kind of just zoom past the $6 mark until we get to, the $7, because there's not a lot of support and resistance to really contest us, right? There's not a lot of support and resistance. There's only this real chunk of area. If we take this over here, right? Boom, right? This is the real next chunk of area. So we should kind of jump quick. And I'm just super, super optimistic and super, super excited about this price action. We've been calling the reversals for the last few weeks because there have been signs already for the last few weeks suggesting that we are going to reverse. Now, if I did invert this scale and I showed you like this, you'd probably say this chart looks like it's about to dump. And that's exactly what I would tell you. Okay? Because if we did in reverse, I mean, there'll be nice highs over here, a lower high over here, and it looks like this candle just pretty much wants to let go. But luckily for us, ladies and gentlemen, this is not ICP selling off. This is ICP pumping. When we actually do look at it in reverse, we can see that there's so much for us to really, really go down. Because, ladies and gentlemen, right, we are pretty much creating boom like this. This is technically a lower high, but technically in reverse is a higher low, which I'll reverse in a sec so everything makes sense, which means I expect a big, big drop. And like I said, at least probably until somewhere in the 70s, right? Even just in terms of candle closes, the next big relevant zone is 65 bucks. When we go to the weekly, right, we can see a weekly candle over here at roughly 75 bucks. If we take the top of the weekly candle, it's at 79 bucks. So, this does look like it's just going to go all the way to here. And when we reverse this, boom, right, it is pretty much the price zones we have been talking about for many, many weeks to come. In fact, probably even over a year, right? This is the main zone I've been talking about. Now, can ICP go higher? Absolutely can, but it might require a double top. Not a double top, sorry, a double cycle. A double cycle. Because if we go to ICP right now and we look at Internet Computer Protocol, right, 3.2 billion market cap, roughly $6. So if we were to 10x, 32 billion market cap, $60. If we were to 20x, that's going to be 64 billion market cap, $120. Now, 60 billion market cap is not the craziest thing in the world, despite what people say, right? Because there's going to be a lot more money. And if ICP really grabs the attention, then it can definitely be hitting something like 60 billion market cap. So 120 is not out of the realm of possibility. But of course, if we want to hit something like 180, that's practically another, that's practically 30x from here, which would be almost 100 billion market cap, which would be $180. Now, can it happen? Absolutely. But it's going to require many, many updates. I'm not calling it right now. I would have to see how the price action is, if there's any new game changing innovations, if there's next level adoption, if ICP is in the spotlight. Many things are required. Also, the total amount of money, right? Because if we get 6 trillion market cap this cycle, the $180 is not, it's a low probability. But if we get maybe 15 trillion, 12 trillion, 18 trillion total in the whole cycle, then ladies and gentlemen, $180 ICP is more than possible. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy. I love you guys so, so much. Things are looking good. We're currently ranked 39 in the world. We're up 5% on the day. Volume is looking good. Everything is looking good. I love you guys so much. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.